Last summer of 2018, Pat Mathis and Misty Hall and Daryl McLaughlin, three of our wonderful custodians, found a young lady who was sleeping out on the patio behind our church building here toward the back road, St. Clair, sleeping on a picnic table. And Pat and Misty and Daryl started looking in on her and looking out after her. Took her a sleeping bag and a pillow. Every once in a while would invite her in to use the microwave. And on August the 29th, Holly Knupp, our minister to median adults, met this young 19-year-old homeless lady whose name we now know is Isabella. It was August the 29th. On August the 30th, Gina Black helped Holly get Isabella checked into Safe Harbor. Safe Harbor is a place in town that helps young ladies particularly get off the street so that they don't become victims of sex trafficking. On August the 30th, on a Thursday, they checked Isabella into Safe Harbor. Unfortunately, on Friday, the next day, Isabella ran away and disappeared for a couple of months. And then one Wednesday night, late October, Judd Reasons, our executive pastor, texted Holly and said, "Your friend is in the fellowship hall." Holly hurried down there to meet her. Leanne Fowler had seen her out there on that patio, on that picnic table, and invited Isabella in to eat Wednesday night supper, and she did. Holly was so glad to see her. Isabella said, "I'd like to stay for Bible study," and she did. And afterwards, Holly took Isabella to the Salvation Army, not too far from here, and checked Isabella in. Isabella stayed there for a long time. She would eat, sleep, and have her meals there, and spend her free mornings, the free time in the morning, back on our patio, on that picnic table. And then something happened that was terribly upsetting for Isabella, but was a turning point in her life. Her cell phone was stolen at the Salvation Army. And that cell phone, of course, was precious to her. It was her lifeline. And she was so mad, so angry, so upset about that she ran away from the Salvation Army. Holly just happened to call that day at the Salvation Army to check on Isabella, and the caseworker said, well, her phone was stolen. She was so upset that she ran away. Holly looked for Isabella and couldn't find her. A few days later, she called back to the Salvation Army to see if they'd heard anything. Isabella's caseworker said, "We haven't heard anything." "Oh, but by the way," the caseworker said, "she did leave her mother's phone number." Well, Holly was thrilled. We've got her mother's phone number. So Holly called Isabella's mother. Her mother knew Isabella was in Minnesota. Her mother didn't know her little girl was in Huntsville, didn't know her little girl was homeless. But Isabella's mother wanted Isabella to come home. Holly kept leaving notes out on that picnic table, right out there. Isabella didn't have a phone. The only way she had to get in touch with her was to leave notes on the picnic table. One day, Isabella read one of those notes and came to Holly's office. To make a long story short, Judd Reasons, our executive pastor, Mike Pierce, our minister of missions, pulled together enough money to get Isabella a plane ticket. In the meantime, for a couple of days, Isabella stayed with the Knupps. Their family, Dow and Ethan and Fletcher, surprised Isabella and Holly by providing Isabella with a new phone. One afternoon, when Holly had commitments, Gayla Kidd, our own Gayla Kidd from the Huntsville Assistance Program, hung out with Isabella. And then in a couple of days, Isabella and was reunited with her mom. It's too early to write, the end like you used to see on fairy tale stories. It's too early to say it has a storybook ending. We don't know yet. Isabella faces still lots of obstacles, but she's home, and there's hope. There's so many lessons from that story. One, sometimes hard love is not because people are mean and nasty, but because love is inconvenient. And everybody who loved on Isabella suffered inconvenience. Sometimes loving people requires getting involved. That means time and energy, and sometimes it means money. But everybody whose name I mentioned in that story loved Isabella, as inconvenient as it was. There's another lesson from that story, and a part of the story I haven't told you yet. Remember I said that Isabella's mom wanted her to come home? So Holly started putting those notes out there on the picnic table, pleading with Isabella to come see her. And one day she did. And sitting in her office, Holly called Isabella's mom. And Holly extended her phone out to Isabella to talk to her mom. Isabella refused, angry even. She ran out of Holly's office. Holly chased her. And Holly had the presence of mind to put her mom on speakerphone. And Holly chased Isabella out of the church office. Isabella hurried down that hallway past the chapel on the Governor's Drive into things, past the chapel, past the children's check-in area, headed toward the sanctuary. Holly's behind her, oh my gosh, with her phone. And her mom is calling, pleading, Isabella, come home. I love you. I'm not mad at you. We can fix this. Isabella's hurrying away. Holly's chasing her. Isabella's headed toward the sanctuary. Isabella got nearly to the sanctuary, then bolted out the door to the right, headed toward Governor's Drive, out the door that would take her right by the big mosaic. Holly figured Isabella would come around the building. After all, her only home away from home was that patio out back. So Holly turned left, ran down the hall by the sanctuary with the parlor over here on the left, if you know where I'm talking about, ran out what's we call east entrance. Sure enough, she headed Isabella off at the pass. Holly said, Isabella, talk to your mom. Isabella wouldn't. And she left. Disappeared again. Over the next several days, Holly got several text messages from Isabella's mom. I want Isabella to come home. Find my little girl, tell her I want her to come home. On Wednesday, Isabella's mom called Holly and said, I sent Isabella an email. Would you find her and make sure she reads it? Holly went looking for Isabella, found her across the way here at the public library, sitting at a computer. Holly sat down. Surprisingly, this time Isabella didn't bolt. Holly said, Isabella, your mom sent you an email. I think you ought to read it. Isabella went to her email account and opened the email and began to cry. Holly called Isabella's mom and handed Isabella the phone. And she took it. And she talked to her mom. Not long after that, Isabella was home. Are there any Isabellas here? Maybe watching by live stream. Any Isabellas here who've wandered a long way off, The love of God is the voice of a mother on speakerphone. Isabella, I love you. Isabella, come home. Isabella, I'm not mad. Isabella, we can fix this. Softly and tenderly, the old gospel song says, Jesus is calling, calling for you and for me. See on the portal, he's waiting and watching, watching for you and for me. Come home, come home, you who are weary, come home, earnestly, tenderly. Jesus is calling, calling, oh Isabel, come home.